terrorists in Khan al-Asal launched a missile containing chemical weapons, leaving 15 martyrs. An official foreign ministry source dismisses as groundless reports about bombs dropped by Syrian warplanes inside Lebanese territories. Al-Jafari says Syria confirms its absolute support for the world tendency to build an international community that is free of the use of force. Good afternoon, I am Yarado Krikorian from the news center in Damascus. Terrorists fired a rocket containing chemicals into the area of Khan al-Asal in Aleppo countryside. Initial information tells that 26 people, mostly civilians, were killed and many others were injured. The following TV footage from inside Aleppo University Hospital shows some cases of injuries caused by toxic gas. A medical source said that injuries were as a result of the inhalation of toxic phosphorus chemicals.
طبعا مشاهدينا نحن الآن داخل مشفى حلب الجامعي. هذه الحالات كما تتابعون معنا جراء الشهداء من المدنيين وحالة استنفار في مشفى حلب الجامعي.
He warned that this crime was a dangerous action and the first reaction to the Arab League Council ministerial meeting's decision. The minister said, the use of internationally prohibited weapons is a dangerous turning point in the course of events in Syria at the security and military levels. He criticized the silence of the world community toward the states that finance, arm and provide shelter to the terrorists.
المادة الموجودة في الصاروخ تؤدي فورا إلى الإغماء ثم إلى الاختلال.
An official source at the Foreign and Expatriates Ministry has said that the reports circulated by some Lebanese, Arab and international news media about bombs being dropped by Syrian warplanes inside Lebanese territories are totally groundless. In a statement, the source said that some countries that pursued a hostile policy against Syria through arming and funding the armed terrorist groups have promoted this false news. The source added that the ministry confirms as absolutely baseless such reports and asserts its respect for Lebanese sovereignty and keenness on Lebanon's security and stability. Iran has affirmed that the insistence of certain states to send weapons to the terrorists in Syria and refrain to violence constitutes an act of international terrorism. Iran denounced the flagrant foreign intervention in Syria's internal affairs. The Iranian Assistant Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdullahian said, the solution in Syria is purely political and the Syrian people will not allow others from abroad to take decisions on their behalf. He pointed out that the recent acts of the terrorist groups against the Syrian people and the opposition that believes in national dialogue have failed. He called on all sides to resort to national and constructive dialogue with the The Russian Special Envoy to African States, Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Markelov, has said The BRICS group member states do not accept foreign intervention in Syria's internal affairs, and Margelov said the BRICS summit, due to be held in South Africa on the 26th and 27th of this month, will discuss the general course based on the principle of enabling the Syrians alone to solve their own problems. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon has urged the world community, as well as the government and opposition in Syria, to work immediately for reaching a political solution to the crisis in the country. A statement issued by the spokesman of the UN Secretary-General has referred to the need for all parties to abandon the military option as a solution. It also warned against the repercussions of giving priority to armament over political dialogue, considering the events in Syria as having been the result of the first option. Syria's permanent UN representative Bashar al-Ja'fari has voiced Syria's support for the world's tendency to build an international community free of using force, where the principles of the UN Charter based on justice, equality and peace prevail. Syria is ready to take part in any international effort to achieve that goal and help come out with a concluding document that meets the aspirations of our people and governments, al-Ja'fari said in a speech at the United Nations Conference on the Arms Trade Treaty held yesterday. He added that any future treaty on arms trade has to reiterate the states' right, according to the UN Charter, particularly Item 51, to acquire all suitable means to preserve their national security and stress the rights of the peoples who live under foreign occupation to self-defense and self-determination. Al-Ja'fari referred to Israel's involvement in the illegal arms trafficking in the world, which encourages drugs gangs and separatist movements. He also referred to Syria's suffering from terrorism and sabotage based on extremist and takfiri fatwas issued by instigators who are hosted by Arab, regional and Western states, and terrorist groups on top, al-Qaeda-linked Jabhat al-Nusra, are carrying out the acts of terror in Syria. These groups could have never been active without the funds, weapons and training supplied to them by a number of Arab, regional and Western countries, al-Ja'fari said. He added that the latest statements of a number of countries to supply and increase the level of arming to those terrorist groups in Syria is a matter of concern, as they really know the nature and essence of these groups. Syrian Arab army targeted a terrorist group in the village of Nizariya in Al-Qusayr of Homs countryside, killing many terrorists. The terrorists killed included Khaled al-Rai, who was known as one of the most dangerous terrorists in Al-Qusayr. Syrian Arab army also killed many terrorists who were hiding in An-Nur mosque west of the schools in the neighborhood of Karm Shamsham. Meanwhile, at the crossroad of Al-Haik, authorities arrested Muhammad Faisal Hilal and Yahya Farhan al-Khuli, who are wanted for smuggling weapons. Syrian Arab army units continue their confrontation of the armed terrorist groups that attack citizens and commit acts of sabotage and looting in some areas in Idlib countryside. A unit of the valiant Syrian Arab army targeted today the gatherings of terrorists in Hajj Valley to the west of Idlib city and in some surrounding farms, killing and injuring many terrorists and inflicting heavy casualties on them. The Syrian Arab army in Ma'arat al-Numan and the surroundings of Wadi al-Daif and Hamdiya, killing most of them and destroying their vehicles and weapons. Another army unit confronted terrorists that tried last night to attack two military posts in Fayloun and Dreamland near the city of Idlib, killing many of them, while the rest ran away into neighboring farms. Welcome back. In Iraq, 56 people were killed and 200 others injured in a series of terrorist blasts in different neighborhoods in Baghdad that targeted restaurants, bus stops and many shops today. Iraqi police said that more than 13 terrorist attacks, most of them by booby-trapped cars, took place today on the eve of the 10th anniversary of the U.S.-British invasion of Iraq. Meanwhile, Iraqi police arrested 26 armed men who had 33 explosive devices and rockets in al-Mahmudiyeh, south of Baghdad. In the Vatican, an inaugural Mass was held today for the Pope Francis I on top of the Catholic Church. The Mass was attended by a number of world leaders in addition to thousands who gathered in St. Peter's Square. Last Wednesday, the cardinals elected the Argentine Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio as the new Pope, who chose the name of Francis I to be the first Pope from Latin America, where the largest number of Catholics live. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more news about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The Minister of Industry, Adnan al-Sukhni, asserted that the implementation of production and the investment plans during last year were exceptional. The Minister said there are many establishments and companies which have gone out of service because of the crisis and we should find new solutions. He also called for establishing a new line for batteries in Damascus to provide the needs of the local market. Moreover, al-Sukhni pointed out to the importance of the commitment of the subscribing citizens in Aleppo factory for tractors and the possibility of assembling these tractors in cooperation with the Khuduro Iranian company. The cultivated land of spring potato crops reached 1,042 hectares out of 2,400 hectares, which was the original plan for this season. It is worth mentioning that these lands are affiliated to the Public Commission for Developing Al-Ghab area. The associated manager of the Commission said that the reason behind the decrease in the cultivated lands is due to the difficulties in providing fuel, the high costs of labor, in addition to the inability to plant these crops within the current crisis. The Brent crude fell, shrinking to less than $15 a barrel for the first time since January, while the Brent crude for May retreated 32 cents per barrel on the London-based ICE Futures Europe exchange, and the volumes were 46% below the 100-day average. On the other hand, U.S. crude oil futures were high in early dealings of Asia, near $94 per barrel. European shares fell for a third day before the Cypriot lawmakers vote on a 5.8 billion euros of the bank deposit levy, which is needed to win a bailout, whereas the US index futures were little changed and the Asian shares climbed. The Nikkei index rose 1.5% after the market registered its biggest fall in 10 months. In the local market, the 21-carat gold were 300 Syrian pounds up, reaching 5,100 Syrian pounds per gram. As the Jewelers Assembly set the price of the Rashadi golden coin at 37,200 Syrian pounds and the English coin at 41,600 Syrian pounds. The yen weakened weakened for the first time in 4 days against the US dollar before changing leadership at the Bank of Japan amid speculations for an expanded monetary easing, while the Japanese currency declined against most of its major peers as the Asian shares rebounded from yesterday's biggest drop in more than 7 months. The euro fell for a second day against the US dollar after media reports said that the Cypriot parliament will not approve a bank deposit levy to help fund the nation's bailout. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Terrorists in Khan al-Asal launch a missile containing chemical weapons, leaving 15 martyrs. An official foreign ministry source dismisses as groundless reports about bombs dropped by Syrian warplanes inside Lebanese territories. Al-Jafari says Syria confirms its absolute support for the world tendency to build an international community that is free of the use of force. Good afternoon, I'm Yarado Krikorian from the news center in Damascus. Terrorists fired a rocket containing chemicals into the area of Khan al-Asal.
الآن داخل مشفى حلب الجامعي. هذه الحالات كما تتابعون معنا جراء الشهداء من المدنيين وحالة استنفار في مشفى حلب الجامعي.
In Aleppo countryside, initial information tell that 26 people, mostly civilians, were killed and many others were injured. The following TV footage from inside Aleppo University Hospital shows some cases of injuries caused by toxic gas. A medical source said that injuries were as a result of the inhalation of toxic phosphorus chemicals.
طبعا مشاهدينا